been watching here as this is continuing on there. This white SUV reaching very high speeds there on the surface streets, just clocking over 90 miles per hour just a second ago. And so it's times like this, and as you just heard with the context there, this is the morning rush hour hours there on the West Coast. So we're watching very dangerous turns going through the sidewalk there and the crossing lane. But again, we're watching as this white SUV is continuing to drive there through Southern California. And so just for a little bit of background here that we have, according to our partners there at Fox 11, authorities there in Southern California are currently in pursuit of a, quote, armed and dangerous suspect there in the San Fernando Valley. The suspect, though, ultimately driving that white SUV, speeding through some of the surface streets as we're seeing, and nearly colliding with several other cars that we've been watching throughout the area. So this is our Skyfox that is flying overhead at this point. And it's dodging traffic, if you're familiar there with Southern California, in the Van Nuys area. So again, the time there on the West Coast is still just about 10 o'clock there in the morning, right after the peak rush hour hours as people are heading to work, typically around the 9 o'clock hour to get in, but still very close as this suspect is still speeding through these very small neighborhood streets. You see the number of cars, and we've seen the suspect nearly collide with cars on the side several different times as we've been watching this police chase there. But again, still on these surface streets, some of these cars, it's oftentimes they're not aware that a suspect could be being chased there in the area. So as you're seeing these other cars who are driving and communicating through traffic, they are just going there. So I want to continue on watching here. And so we've been relying a lot on our partners there in Southern California, continuing to provide additional context to where this police chase is happening, as it is happening there in Southern California. Let's check back in with Fox 11. Let's listen.
Working to figure out exactly how this is all comes together, but apparently dropped somebody off at the hospital. I believe this is a dead end. I think this one is a dead end or no outlet, or not. It's just a T intersection, somebody's saying. So at any rate, keeping an eye on it. This vehicle continues to move around the area out here. Van Nuys is where we are. We have not left the Van Nuys proper area. Side streets, major intersections, all of it. We have been basically touring the area. That vehicle continues to drive at high speeds, very dangerous for the public. And of course, LAPD still concerned. They're coming out on Sepulveda right there, or Van Owen. Why do I keep missing the Van Owen? But at any rate, making his move right there once again. Now, officers definitely concerned about the public safety. That is their biggest concern, that safety of the person behind that wheel. Believe it or not, they do care about his safety as well, or hers. We're not having any kind of confirmation. But again, you can see that vehicle moving around 60 miles an hour, busy streets out here in the morning. Now we're back on to Kester, and that's what we've been talking about. He's just basically making these big blocks through these neighborhoods and then joining on to these major roads out here in the Van Nuys area. Again, though, the vehicle continues. There's the LAPD helicopter. That's the guy calling out the streets, making sure that the officers on the ground know exactly where that suspect is.
Those sharp turns this person is taking around the corner of the street makes you so nervous because there could be people out and about. And as you mentioned, for whatever reason, there are people who are going outside and getting close to the vehicle, trying to, I don't know, take pictures of it or just, who knows, at this point, live stream it or take video of it, which is the worst idea. This is a very dangerous situation. This individual clearly is just picking up speed. We've watched him fly through those intersections, ignore the stop signs. Those speed bumps don't seem to matter at all. And it's just concerning, Stu. It really is.
It's actually very scary to watch. Right now we're going by the hospital, and I believe that it was where the area, or right in this area, is where apparently he dropped somebody off earlier on, making a turn. He's going to be behind these buildings right here. You know what? That's the hospital in the shot right there. I'm going to see if we can make sure we get back over it. I'm going to keep an eye out right there and there. I believe he just made another turn. So, again, he just kind of picking these random streets out here. Those high speeds definitely not helping, and you are definitely correct. The officers do not want any of the public to actually even come out or try and help in any type of way, even if it's positive or negative. They just don't want the public near this person, especially the fact that, you know, those high speeds, like you said, coming around a hard turn like that, he could lose control, and you've got people standing there. Also, this person is armed and dangerous, clearly not in the best frame of mind right now, so we don't know what the goal is. And again, wrong side of the road right there and on Kester, and just continuing to move along. You know, this is really scary stuff. And again, a lot of these people, they just don't know what's going on. And we're just making blocks out here.
Yeah.
We are just literally making blocks in this neighborhood. Is this person trying to get somebody's attention in this neighborhood? All these questions, hopefully we'll get some answers, and hopefully this will come to an end peacefully out here in the Van Nuys area.
Near 90 miles per hour on those residential streets, making those sharp turns, kind of almost running into that big rig there that was making the left. But it seems like this driver knows the area, knows where they're focusing on. And also, it's just such erratic behavior that, is it that the police aren't pursuing him completely? Because sometimes we see black and whites behind this driver, and then sometimes not, like right now.
Well, you know, they have policies down there, and safety right now is one of LAPD's. That's like top of the list for these guys. A lot of traffic right here. Kind of curious what he's going to try to do. So, you know, officers, to keep up with this person at driving at those erratic speeds, you just got to figure he's backing up. He's going to be cutting through the Rite Aid or whatever that is, right? Walgreens. You know, so, but they don't. Officers are not going to they're not going to match that energy, because they're going to have to keep up and be safe at the same time. When they can, they will. Are they nearby? Most definitely. If this thing comes to an end somehow, officers will instantly appear. I can almost guarantee that. What the purpose is, my goodness, I just couldn't even begin to figure out or wonder what they're doing. Last time he took this street right here, let's see if he does it again. It does look like we're basically taking that same street again, so I believe this is going to be Vos. And we're just making our way. Sorry, we're on Vesper. We're on Vesper, and Vos was the cross street. So, anyways, continuing on again, 75 miles an hour, residential neighborhood. I hope there's no pets out there. I hope there's no people out there. Coming back up to another major, that's going to be Van Owen, and basically just making these blocks out here. You know, you'd think, well, maybe officers could put the spike strips out or something like that. Not at 70 miles an hour. Not with an armed suspect behind the wheel. And again, what if that driver sees those officers? What if that driver tries to target an officer? They just don't want to set up for that type of situation. But as he continues making his way by that dairy right here, this little drive-through dairy off of Kester, you know, we see the people standing out there. We see the cell phones out there. Hopefully nobody tries to get any closer to the vehicle. But again, this chase just continues out here in the Van Nuys area. That vehicle moving along at high speeds. Thank goodness he hasn't hit anybody, but the longer this goes, those odds, they're just going to get higher and higher.
Yeah, truly. I mean, it gets busier on the road. Obviously, there are moments there are cars, and we saw this individual back into a parking lot to try to avoid some of that traffic that he or she encountered there at that intersection. You know, we often talk about, and this would be speculation, sometimes we see these individuals who are on the run trying to get away, going to areas they're familiar with. We do have that information, Stu, from you, that this individual dropped someone off possibly at the hospital, which is nearby. So perhaps staying in this area for whatever reason based on that, or perhaps it is an area they're familiar with. But it does seem a bit random, because although staying in the proximity of this area, he or she doesn't seem to want to go much farther. No freeways at this point. We've been following this for quite a while now, and it just keeps, he or she keeps going in circles.
Well, you know, that's right. And, you know, I was wondering exactly what hospital they kept talking about. There's many in this area. I just got information, solid information, that it's Valley Presbyterian. So apparently it started at Valley Presbyterian Hospital. And whoever this person dropped off at the hospital, unknown if they're injured, unknown what the circumstances are, but that was the person that said the driver inside that vehicle, armed and dangerous. Multiple guns is actually the word that they use, not just one. And so that was the reason why LAPD got behind him or was trying to stop this vehicle. But you can see that erratic driving. And then, of course, you factor in the fact that this person may be armed or probably is armed. And whatever the reasons are, you know, this just makes a very, very dangerous situation for the public. LAPD, they're doing what they can to kind of keep everybody alert about what's going on. And you are correct. He stays in these same, we're basically in that same neighborhood. We have not left Van Nuys proper since this pursuit is started, and it just continues on out there. You can see that vehicle making those wide turns. He's been very, very lucky with traffic, except for that one time that you mentioned where he actually had to back up to get to a parking lot, because it seems like this person is playing this game of playing this game of, I got to keep this car moving or there's going to be a problem, because we have yet to see this vehicle actually stop. It's always moving. It's at high speeds, not so high speeds, wrong side of the road. Look at that. Just imagine it's your loved one is driving along on the road right there on Van Owen, and then all of a sudden you've got this car barreling down double the speed limit heading right for him. These are dangerous situations. They are not cool at all. And of course, LAPD, they're doing what they can. But what can you do? You can't pit this guy because you can't get your vehicles close enough and those high speeds. You can't get in front of him because this person possibly armed, and this erratic driving, who knows? Maybe he's going to see that officer with the spike strips and then maybe target that person. So yeah, this is one of those ones where, you know, the policy basically is to back off. They have. The driving hasn't changed. The erraticness hasn't changed. The danger limit actually seemed to have gotten worse. So they are doing what they can right now. We're keeping an eye on it as well. If you know somebody that's in the Van Nuys area, I would at least try. Look at this. Look at this.
Oh, my goodness.
Look at that. Look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, erratic driving there.
And there's some irony there, too. That's the DMV is like literally right there at that corner. But at any rate, this vehicle continues on. And I don't want to take my eyes off of the car and we move by so quickly. But do you see all those people as we zip by standing on the sidewalks and they have their cell phones out? So it's almost like maybe it's the attention, but I've yet to really actually see that. We've had these discussions with people in the past about why people run, and you know, the 15 minutes of fame theory, really, I have yet to hear somebody say that's the reason why I ran. There's a dead end, and this is where it's going to get a little spicy, because you've got officers right there as well, and if okay. All right. Because I just was afraid that he was going to ram a vehicle or put an officer in a spot.
But it's the first time we're seeing those officers behind him in a while, so they have him obviously on their radar. They've been monitoring this with an airship overhead. But they came out right at the right time when he was in a dead end, but unfortunately he got out. And if you are joining us and watching, at times we do have another box, a bigger box on the screen. So you'll see moments ago when this driver was driving erratically, and as you were mentioning, Stu, backing up, here he was on the bigger box here on the right of your screen. This is when the driver was caught in traffic, backed up, and went into a parking lot of a shopping center right there to get away and evade that traffic. But this is the type of stuff we've been watching for the past half hour or so, and clearly there's no end in sight of this erratic behavior, the erratic driving, of going in loops in the Van Nuys area right here in this neighborhood. at some points he's been reaching almost 90 miles per hour, making these sharp turns, going into traffic, and then weaving in and out, going over these speed bumps right now. But I can't believe he got away from the police officers right there at that dead-end street.
So, Stu, what we know so far is very limited. Obviously, we're watching this unfold live. We do know that this individual dropped someone off at Valley Presbyterian Hospital, and that person that was dropped off spoke about how this individual was armed, not with just one gun, perhaps a number of weapons. So that is obviously concerning, and this does escalate the situation. We don't, though, know if there are perhaps other people in the vehicle. Maybe there are. We don't know. We don't know if it's a man or a woman. We don't really have much to go on. We just know that this person, since we have been following this, their erratic behavior has actually escalated. It's gotten much worse. Higher speeds, more risks are being taken. It is concerning. Obviously, these are streets that are getting busier as the morning continues. There are a number of pedestrians, as you pointed out, either curious who are coming out on the sidewalk, or people who just happen to be going up on with their daily lives there. But they are coming very close to this vehicle, trying to get pictures, maybe just curious and want to see what's going on, which is a very bad idea, obviously. We are seeing the police officers now get a little bit closer and pursue this vehicle. Always a tough call with situations like this, because they have to weigh in and see, you know, is our presence and our pressure on this individual going to make the situation worse, or is it going to help? At this point, they decided to try to follow this vehicle, and it looks like
I have a feeling he's running out of gas.
Maybe.
Because he is slowing down.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, do you see that individual? That's what we're talking about, getting awfully close.
Yeah. And you know, the vehicle, it's a little Buick is what it is, and it also has Idaho plates. Now this is where my camera work is going to be. I'm going to have to stay a little bit wider, be a little bit more trigger happy for the zoom. Okay, the doors are opening. And hands are out. Okay, so that's definitely a plus. And it seems like this driver complying, or actually kind of knows what the drill is. You know, wasn't even really waiting for the officers to make those calls. I'm venturing to say that car gave up before the driver did. Getting out, whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, we don't want to see any of that. Getting a little closer there, you can see that person basically knows the drill. I would venture to say those officers are probably not that fast in the, you know, hands where you can see them walk back towards us. But definitely making those moves right now. Doesn't seem to have anything on his person, but definitely now starting to follow those directions. You know, this is probably the best ending that we could have hoped for, is that vehicle just kind of ran out of gas right there. Of course, he doesn't have the cuffs on as of yet, but again, you've got a lot of people out here, like you mentioned. I'm going to take my eyes off the suspect for just a moment. That's what you were talking about. All these folks, they kind of knew this car was coming around the corner, has been in the neighborhood all morning, and so they were out here getting the video that they can. But it's all coming to an end right there. That person doing the asphalt angel, as we would call it. And so far, it has been a calm ending to a very crazy pursuit. And you got to hand it to these officers as well. You know, anybody that's ever been in that type of situation, you know, these are officers. These are people. These are human beings. And believe me, they have adrenaline rushes. They get tunnel vision. They have everything that you and I might have in those type of high-stress situations. And to keep it together like that, and to follow the rules, and basically stay calm in all this kind of crazy, you got to give them props. Right. Officers approaching the vehicle before cuffing, which is also a little unusual, just to make sure that there's nobody probably in that vehicle. But again, just going to wait for those cuffs to go on, and then they're going to call this over, or code 4, as law enforcement calls it.
Yeah, big credit to the law enforcement officers there. You could tell the patience is a key because they have to know when to attack and when to back off and when to pursue and when not to pursue, apply pressure or not, because you never know the mental state of these people who go on these wild pursuits, and obviously you don't know their destination and what their state of mind is and what they're armed with, like in this case. So such a good ending to what was a wild chase, just going in loops in Van Nuys with that erratic driving. It could have been so much worse if someone was hit or injured in all of this.
Definitely.
Yeah, really lucky. Really lucky.
And
in fact.
Yep.
All right, Stu, well, thank you. Appreciate you and Sky Fox. We'll get some more information and see what all of this was about later during our newscast.
Yeah.
And we are going to change it up a little bit. Let's talk a little weather with Maria. She's been standing by patiently to fill us in on what we can expect.
All right, as you see, they're just listening into some of that coverage from Fox 11 there in Los Angeles, giving us an update on that LAPD pursuit of an armed suspect in Southern California. And with some of these situations, it can be interesting to see how they play out. Some play out better than others. Thankfully, though, things coming to an end there without anyone seemingly being injured in this chase. Of course, we're getting this live vantage point there from Sky Fox as well. Our thanks to Stu Wendell, who's always in Sky Fox, kind of narrating these situations, taking us through those side streets in Southern California for those of us who aren't as familiar with the area. So, of course, what we do know, according to our partners at Fox 11, authorities were in pursuit of an armed and dangerous suspect there in the San Fernando Valley. That suspect, as you saw, was driving a white SUV and was seen speeding through surface streets, at times reaching all the way up to 95 miles per hour in some of those very small streets in residential areas, nearly colliding with several other vehicles there, dodging traffic there in Southern California. But again, it was just now, as it is right there on the West Coast, just after 10:30 in the morning. This is honestly just after some of that morning commute traffic was happening as Sky Fox was watching the suspect. So, of course, if we're able to get any more information ultimately about what led up to this chase, we'll bring it to you here on Live Now, but very limited information as this is in some of those preliminary stages. The suspect officially being detained, taken into handcuffs there by LAPD officers in Southern California. So as you saw there, as Sky Fox zooms out, several onlookers there on the lawn, taking out their phones, also viewing this in real time, just like us. So we wanted to bring that to you here on Live Now from Fox.